Hello and welcome to the final episode of Australian Survivor Talking Tribal, the show that dives into the gameplay and strategy of Brains versus Brawn. I'm your host, Nathan Morris, and we have officially made it to the finish line. This is your official spoiler warning, though. If you haven't watched the finale of Australian Survivor yet, please go ahead and watch it on Template on demand. We don't want to ruin it for you because it's amazing. Joining us to discuss all things finale is fan favourite Nick Iadanza in the bow tie. Hey, Nick.
A big finale needs a big bow tie, so I'm here.
I bought a button-up shirt for this. It's amazing. And as always, Survivor superfan and podcast host Shannon Gus is here, and she's looking very beautiful. Hi, Shan.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm just so excited. I can't believe this. I feel like over the last 2 months, I've spent more time with George and Haley than anyone in my life, probably including my husband, with how much screen time they got and how immersed I've been in this season, and that it was the king and the queens at the end, that was the final two, is so thrilling to me. What a fitting end to the season.
Well, I am single, and George and Haley are my husband and wife. King of the Jungle, Luke Toki, will be joining us later on in the show, but before we dive in, let's look back at the epic final week. It was amazing. After 44 days in the Outback, our final five are feeling strong.
Only 4 more days.
George is frank with Haley.
My only hope of winning is against you.
At the immunity challenge, the stakes are high.
Somebody's going to become the 20th person voted out of this game.
Proving she is the ultimate challenge beast, Haley wins the immunity necklace.
Haley wins immunity!
Back at camp, George is certain that Flick is going home.
My plan is quite simple. We're all voting for Flick.
But Flick has other plans. Feeling nervous, George comes up with a plan B.
What are we doing?
Split between Way and Flick.
Flick doesn't have an idol.
You don't want to risk it.
George's instincts were right.
I might play my hidden immunity idol.
And his backup plan pays off. Way is blindsided and sent to the jury.
Oh, thanks so much, guys.
You are a champ.
The final four go straight into strategy mode.
We need to break them up.
Flick wins the immunity necklace and a spot in the final three. Different plans begin to brew between the tribe mates. Haley pitches to George that it's time to vote out his right-hand woman.
I think it is essential that we both vote Cara tonight.
But will Cara vote against George?
This is by far the hardest decision I've had to make in this game.
Jonathan reads the votes, and it's Cara who will be next to join the jury.
Cara.
The final three have outlasted 21 tribe mates, but their final immunity challenge awaits them. Before they begin, the tribe mates reunite with their loved ones.
Come on in, guys.
Oh my God, it's... Oh.
2 brains and 1 brawn battle it out for the final immunity necklace.
Nothing easy about Survivor.
After 4.5 hours,
Can't do anymore.
George steps down.
Well done, George.
Haley is in pain. She's not showing it.
5 hours and 17 minutes later,
Come on, Flick.
Haley outlasts Flick and wins the final immunity necklace.
Well done, Haley.
George and Flick fight for their spot in the final 2.
What is a queen without a king?
Haley casts her final vote and King George joins Haley in the final tribal council. The power is now in the hands of the jury. George pitches his Survivor resume.
I'm not ashamed to say that I took opportunities to strike.
But Haley won't go down without a fight.
I think I am the one person left here who has done all 3 of those things really, really well.
The jury gather the answers they need.
You had all the power in the game. Do you regret it now that we now have the power?
And Haley wins $500,000 and the title of Sole Survivor. I cannot believe it has all come to an end. a big, huge congratulations to Hayley, the flipping queen, the sole survivor of season 6. It's been an incredible journey to watch her play the game from day one. Shannon, what did you think about the final 2 survivor experience?
I mean, what can be said about George and Hayley? They drove the season from beginning to end between the two of them, and it was so amazing to me that they happened to be, or created this for themselves, that they were the final 2. I felt like that was so unlikely. I mean, for George, he started off on an extremely rocky start. It was a rough pre-swap in particular, but I truly believe he was on point strategically throughout the entire post-merge. Obviously, the merge vote, the Gerald vote, so epic. And then this final 5 vote, for him to read that play, to read Flick and her idol, and then to split the vote so perfectly was an incredible move. And for Hayley, she has been incredible. Obviously, there was that little snafu where she got voted out, but so much perfection around that with the Joey vote, the Shannon vote, coming in here, coming back from Redemption Rock and having so much power as the swing, and her convincing powers at this final 4 were incredible. So to see 2 such amazing moves from the final 2 in the final week, to me was just a personification of how amazing they've both been through a lot of the season.
I tell you what, this entire season, it's been building to these 2, but yet always at the end, something seems to happen and we don't get the 2 at the end that we want. But we did this time. Do you think, Nick?
It's very rare in Survivor, not just Australian Survivor, but all Survivor, to have the 2 biggest strategic forces sitting there at the end and have actual genuine resumes that don't feel padded out, that actually feel like respectable. Like, I feel like you can have 2 people who sit there and can honestly claim that they are the best 2 people to represent the season. And I absolutely loved it. And I think it's a definite something that we should all be very lucky to have experienced and to have been part of, and to make us part of it a little bit more. I'm going to join this little,
Yes.
King, Queen, Duchess. I think that my daughter won't mind that I stole her little dress-up crown.
I think that's perfect for the King and the Queen. And also I have one, but mine's a little bit more elaborate. Let's go back to the beginning. So Wei was the first to go this week on Survivor. What do we think about Wei's Survivor journey? Because it was an interesting one. I don't think anyone thought she would get as far as what she did, Shan.
We do see this often where you just need a little bit of leg room in the early phases, someone who might seem like they would be a first boot, give them a chance and they can make it all the way to the end, which Wade does here. And I do think that a strong part of the journey for me was this incredibly complicated relationship with George from day one. And the fact that she would go out here as his collateral, not even his extreme target, to me, it just points to the complexity of that relationship and how interesting it was the whole season.
Weigh in on your thoughts about Wei, please, Nick.
Well, look, I love Wei. I think that she brought something so unique and fresh to the season. And the fact that she did it with George there the whole time just felt like such a fun counterpoint. Like, there's always this kind of like buried narrative that George and Wei, or Wei feels very frustrated with George. And I think that the fact that in her last episode there we have this moment where she's struggling in a challenge and George goes back and helps her. It was this perfect way to sum up this really complex relationship that has been a really nice little subtext, a little spicy subtext for us. I was someone who was actually there in the Final 5 challenge, and I got to watch that play out live, and it brought a tear to my eye to see him stop and go back and help her.
I do. I think that was really beautiful of George, but I also think that was very strategic of George, because throughout the season we've seen people talk about managing Wei. And George having to work around that. And I feel like, no, although it was kind, I do think that George was putting that to use in the future. Shannon, am I right or am I wrong? Because you're a smart lady.
No, everything on Survivor is strategic. You can't untangle one from the other, but they're not mutually exclusive. That he does this, everything that George is thinking about has strategy in it, I'm sure of that. But it still was a beautiful moment. And even when she won the challenge before and he seemed so proud of her, like, there were real moments of beauty in this relationship. And it was also basically a beautiful mess between the two of them the whole season. So I really love that storyline this season.
I do like seeing Wei and someone representing, I feel like, all of us that think we can do Survivor, but we don't have the strength to do it. That's Wei. That's Wei to me. I think she was absolutely brilliant. She was blindsided by George and Cara, though. If Hayley found out about that plan, do you think that things would have turned out differently?
Part of me, wants to think that Hayley would have anticipated that being a possibility. I think that everyone was genuinely blindsided by Flick's idol, even if they did have a contingency plan. But it does, if I'm Hayley, I think that I would be imagining that there is a possibility of that occurring. And you'd have to think that she was almost okay with sacrificing Wei in that instance because, you know, can't bounce back on her. So I don't know. I feel like there was surely we know enough about Hayley that she knew that could have happened.
What do you think, Shan?
I just think it was such a backup to a backup. Like, for all of that to happen, A, Flick needs to have an idol. B, George needs to have a contingency plan, which he usually does, but none of this is guaranteed. And even if all of that happens, she's still immune and she just uses an ally. So I think that if Kara does go to her and tells her that this plan is happening, I do think that Hayley works with Wei and Flick to vote out George. But I think in just the fact that that could happen, leading to another thing that could happen, and all of this is very much an if, not a definitely happening, she's going to let that happen, knowing that she's at least immune. But I thought it was an incredible move from George, as I've said. He really, you know, has seen the numbers so well through this post-merge. He can just see the split, unlike most people can. Numerically, it was perfect. Not telling Hayley he was right, it was perfect, and he saved himself in a really, really tricky Final Five vote.
I think the real misstep here was on Flick's part. She has an idol. Rather than holding it for secret, hoping that they'll stack the votes on her and her one vote making the difference, she actually could have taken a much more forward approach and pulled out her idol and said, look, everyone, I'm not going home. Now you all have to turn on each other here at camp. And I will be here to ensure that the person who I want to go home goes home. Because I think that's been one of the motifs of the season, that whenever the Brawns think they have a plan, the Brains are thinking a couple of steps ahead where they can kind of unpick it. Flick's person didn't go home. George didn't go home. But perhaps if the other four knew that it wasn't going to be Flick, she could have gotten a lot more forward momentum, and the person she wanted to go home could have gone home.
But I'm glad it happened because we got the two at the end that we wanted.
Absolutely.
Look, Flick has been sitting at the bottom of the tribe for a while. If she made it to the final two, do you guys think that she actually could have won? Because for me personally, it was a given. If Flick was at the end, she would have beaten either Hayley or George. What do you think, Shan?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the voting record, a lot of misses there, especially, you know, through the merge, even the pre-merge with Shannon. You know, Flick was losing a lot of friends and allies, and strategically that doesn't look good. But you know who that looks good to? The jury, who are your friends.
Yes.
Like, she didn't vote them out, and as George really perfectly vocalized at that final 3 tribal council, that makes it a really, really small margin to win games just based on your resume, your strategy, and your story, which Flick has an incredible story too. But just taking out some votes like Emmett, Gerald, Danny, possibly an Andrew that she's definitely getting, that doesn't leave a lot of votes up for grabs. So I think she definitely would have won, and I think it was the perfect move for Hayley to take her out.
Nick, would Flick have been wearing your daughter's tiara?
Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind.
Mail it to her.
Look, I love Flick as a character. I want to see her play again. I think that she has so much left in the tank to give Survivor. But regardless, if she got to the end against anyone, she would have won. And this is the second time in a row we've seen this on Australian Survivor. Brooke, the same thing last season in All-Stars, even though that she didn't have that many moves to her name strategically with getting people out at the merge, she would have won because all her friends were on the jury. And you can't beat that social capital. Survivor, in the end, we like to think about it as brains for strategy. We like to think about it in terms of brawn for physicality, but neither of those things matter when it comes to the social part of the game. That will always trump the other two things.
Yeah, that's such a legitimate way to win the game, and it's something we see time and time again. Just being the last member of the minority whose friends authored on the jury and are rooting for the underdog as well. I think that's a really big thing in terms of who people can really cheer for. Flick, outside of that, has such an incredible strength and story, but people on the jury want to see kind of everything, the apple cart being upset, basically. And for the people in power to lose out and for them to be a part of that, it's definitely something that they're going to vote for.
We love drama. What can we say? We must go to a quick break right now, but it's coming up after the break. Luke Toki joins us. Plus, we'll hear from Australian Survivor Season 6 winner, Hayley. Welcome back. We are joined by the king of the jungle, the OG, Luke Toki. How you going, Luke?
Hey, Nath. Listen, I'm a little sad. We are at the end, and it's all wrapped up now. So, what a good season.
Wow. Looks really depressed. He's in black and he's in mourning. Survivor's done for him, but don't worry, it'll be coming back. We have a special message from the sole survivor of Brains versus Brawn. All hail Queen Hayley. Let's take a look.
Hey, Luke and Nathan. I am in complete shock at what's just happened. I cannot believe that I have just been crowned sole survivor.
Winner of Australian Survivor Brains versus Brawn, Hayley.
Look, I put everything I had into this game. I gave it 110%, and you can hope to win, but you really can't hope too much because it's such a complex game. I was so nervous to sit at that tribal council. I know that George is an incredible speaker and he's so charismatic, so to come up against him at the very end made me super nervous, but I really backed my game and I just tried to own it tonight, and it seems like it worked.
I had the power to swing any of those votes.
I think the fact that I had played an all-round game convinced the jury to give me the votes in the end. I have played a strategic game, but it was also very social. I have really good friendships with the people sitting on the jury, and I played in a phenomenal physical game. Like, I'm a brain, and I came in here and beat a bunch of those Brawn to win some of those immunity necklaces, and I'm so proud of that.
Congratulations.
Thanks everyone for listening, watching and engaging with the Talking Tribal podcast this season.
You are sole survivor, Brains versus Brawn.
Well done, Queen. You deserve it.
Yeah, boy!
What an honour to get a message from our Queen Hayley. Thanks, Hayley. All right, guys, what do we think about, well, politician George and pain management specialist Hayley's pitch to the jury? Shannon?
Great question, Nathan. Thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. No, I thought that both pitches were really good, especially the opening pitches. I mean, it's not hard when you do have such big games to back. They both have a lot of moves that they can talk about in detail. And George, beyond that, really has the journey as well. He can talk through from beginning to end how, you know, it started off a little dicey and then got so much better. So I think that journey was great for him. And Hayley can talk about, you know, again, specific moves as they both do that was so brilliant to watch. But I do think that Hayley's game allowed her to come in a little bit more well-rounded, bridging that gap between Brain and Brawn and appealing to everyone on the jury, whereas George's game was quite singular. It was an extreme of that singular criteria and being super strategic and making some epic moves, but it was just that one thing, not as physical or social. So he has to lean on that, but it won't appeal to as wide a range of the jurors.
Well, you be proud of your game, but also it's probably time to be slightly humble in your approach to the jury. But yet George, Luke, seemed to be a politician right to the end.
Yeah, look, George obviously is really proud of his game. He knows what he can offer, and, you know, he's obviously never going to be the most physical out there. You know, socially, he's probably aware that he's not the most social person also, but what he was proud of is how strategic he's been. You know, as a politician, he came out and gave a good speech. I thought it was okay. Maybe could have related a little bit more to the jury. You know, where Hayley kind of was able to pinpoint a lot of her moves. I think she kind of narrowed her moves down, even when she discussed about her 50-50 and how she broke up the Brawn and how she helped blindside Simon. She really kind of nutted it right down to like smaller fragments of her game, where George was kind of like, you know, crown me, I'm King George. I shouldn't be here, but I am. And yeah, look, I'm just happy to see two finalists that have had two separate, different types of games.
I do find it very interesting. I feel as though Hayley humbled herself, especially with her comparison to what happened at Redemption Rock, whereas George didn't put any of that into his pitch, Shannon.
Yeah, I don't think the jury wants to hear that you were perfect, especially because neither of them were perfect. Haley got voted out. George was very, very close to being voted out a couple of times, single-handedly saved by Cara and by Haley in the pre-merge. And you have to speak to that and be aware of it. But it is a fine line between backing yourself and not undermining your game as well, but still being humble. I think Haley did that really well. She would speak to smaller mistakes, for example, having a conversation just with the wrong person. That's the kind of thing that doesn't undercut her whole game, but does show some humility and show that she's self-aware and knows that there were flaws in her game. George, I think, really didn't want to let the guard down at all. He wanted to show that his game was really, really strong and not undermine it in any capacity. So he just went to that extreme. But I definitely think that talking about some flaws, but some flaws that people can accept, having a conversation with the wrong person is not the reason someone won't vote for you. So it's about finding that line where you can admit to mistakes, but they're not deal-breaking mistakes.
I did really enjoy seeing the jury's face every time George declared, "I am the king, give me the crown." Oh, the rolled eyes and the looks that they're all giving each other, which brings me to a couple of people in the jury were visibly angry. One of them was Danny, but then there was also Emmett, who took George to task on basically asking him, is the person that's playing the game of Survivor the person that's on the outside? Luke, how important is that, and what do you think about Emmett going there with George?
Look, I think it was a great question from Emmett, but even this is what's happened, is George should be able to pick up on the little social cues that Emmett and the others are doing after he answers, realizing that they kind of like looking like you're not answering the question. I feel like he should have just paused and relaxed a little bit instead of, he was still so on the front foot of, telling everyone how good his game was. And I feel like he should have just stopped at that moment and answered Emmett's question and tried to give him a good answer. Well, even tell him what he wanted to hear.
Emmett was leading him there with the question, but George refused to go for a walk with him. And that was basically, looking for him to be slightly humble and looking for him to drop the politician's persona. And actually, you're right, Luke, just speak to everybody as a tribe mate, a survivor. Shannon, Emmett was trying to help him get there.
Yeah. No, it's that humanity. And the sad thing is, we've heard from George probably what they needed to hear. He told us in the challenge that he's already proud of himself and the game he's played, but the one thing now that he needs to do is win for his family. And I think if you bring in that component where you're saying, I don't regret any of the moves, they got me to where I am today, but there's a reason for it. And if you're asking about what that means for me externally to the show, that's for my family, that's for the people in my life, that's who I am as a human. But beyond that, to talk to you as human people as well, and not just players in this game, I can see that while I don't regret the moves, I have obviously upset you, and that's not something I would want to do. For that, I do apologize. Of course, there's a human connection in that. That's my regret in it. That's what I'm sorry for. But the moves themselves, that, I back, but it's maybe the approach that I apologize for. So bringing in that humanity is hopefully what you do.
Yes, Luke?
I think that what happens is throughout the game, people create these names, nearly like the plant-based Superman, King George, the Duchess of Double Bay,
the King of the Jungle.
The King of the Jungle.
Handles.
And at this moment, this is the moment where you wipe all that.
Yeah.
Take all that away and you say, I'm Luke Toki, I'm George. And this is where, you bring the human factor into it, because people they're giving you $500,000. They want you to be liked. You, even if someone has played the best game, craziest game, sometimes there's going to be people that just won't give you that money, like Russell Hantz, because we don't like you.
Yeah.
We don't like you. And you need to come down on a human level and talk from the heart. And I feel like, that's what Emmett was trying to lead George down the path of doing.
It was very interesting because it's like Haley watched George and what he did and then picked up on the cues of the jury and then went, okay, wait there, I can see they're yearning something that he isn't giving them, which is another great play from Haley, Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say, it is a little bit counterintuitive. You would think sitting there and fighting for your game, you should only be really positive. But it is, again, like a game of people where you have to, not act like you're better than them. They have to feel good about awarding you money, but not just awarding you money, connecting with you on that level to make you the winner of the season. So it is counterintuitive, and I do understand why people just want to play their game up to its extremes. But I think we see some of the benefits again in copping to some mistakes, in the fact that when Hayley says she has regrets, then when she wants to go stone cold killer and tell Danny, it's not a regret that I lied to your face, I had to do it, that has more weight, because you know that if she thinks she made a mistake, she'll tell you about it. You might not believe it as much with George when he's saying everything was great, then maybe, it casts some shade over all of that. Whereas Hayley gives the light and shade to say this was maybe bad, but that means all of this stuff was actively good.
All right, Shannon, while we've got you here, I want to know if you're on the jury, give me a question that you would ask George and a question that you would ask Hayley. Go.
I think for me, like as a strategist, and that's where my vote would largely go, just down to the strategy, I would have to ask them how they, as fans, reconcile being the winner of the game when for Hayley, she was voted out, when George, where he was so near to being voted out and saved by other people. It was touched on, obviously, in the regrets, because that was the low point of their game. But I would like to see how they defend the mistakes that got them there and how they obviously rally from it to get to this point, because for me, that would be the biggest question mark as a juror.
All right, Luke, you're on the jury. What have you got for them?
Well, pretty much keep it simple. Why do you deserve it over Hayley? Like, get them kind of bickering at each other. Get them trying to argue their point, because that's what it is. They're in a battle right now, and you want them to turn on each other. The great explanation, well, Baden and Pia in their final tribal questions pretty much made them fight over it. Who wants it more?
Fight, yeah.
Okay, so you just want a brawl. Yeah. Brilliant. Look, Shannon, are you happy to see Hayley being Queen of the Outback and Soul Survivor for season 6?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled that Hayley is the winner. She made so many big moves. She has moves like Jagger. I'm sorry for that extremely dated reference, but if she had just done one of the Joey move, splitting her idol at the Shannon move, working with George on the Kez merge boot, coming back, and some of the moves she made here to get rid of Emmett, for example, and really playing that middle, and then ending with that incredible final four, convincing George and Cara to turn on each other. She is one of the best strategic players we've ever seen, and I think they should bottle how calm-headed she can be in the face of chaos. I want some of it. I want some of it for myself. She is strategic, she is smart, she is strong, and she is an epic winner of this game.
I couldn't agree more. And also, makes you want to study pain management too, doesn't it? Because that really helped her out. What do you think, Luke, about Queen Hayley?
Oh, Queen Hayley is one of the best winners we've had. She has ticked all the boxes, outwit, outplay, and outlast. And she, I just think she's a really nice winner.
Yeah.
I can actually connect with her through the screen when I was watching every episode. I think she actually has a good heart outside the game. And I really feel like her whole story of when she applied and wanted to play this game, like it came from like a really true place. I think she's a great winner. She's the queen.
Well, she is the queen for now. She's the queen for 2021. Coming up after the break, Nick tests the age-old question, brains or brawn? Look at my muscles. I'm going to wear a watch up here. We've sent Nick Iadanza all the way to the Aussie Outback to test the age-old question, brains or brawn? Take a look.
Welcome to Australian Survivor Talking Tribal Challenge, where we will have an original showdown between brains versus brawn. Nick will be putting together a puzzle in the same amount of time that our brawn members will be doing 200 push-ups. Who will win? Survivors ready? Go! Oh, Nick is pulling out those puzzle pieces extremely fast. Emmett looks like he is killing it at these push-ups. But you know what they say, brawn aren't that smart. They actually might lose count at some time. Nick knows this Survivor logo well. If he can get his fumbling fingers to move a little faster, he might actually take this out. Win one for the brains. Look at him go. They're using Gerald, the self-proclaimed mathematician for the brawn team, to count it out. Is he missing a few pieces? Who knows? I actually have a lot of faith in Nick right now. Keep going, mate. Looks like those cowboy boots are coming in handy for this challenge again. Gerald only wore cowboy boots on land challenges, and he's back to it again today. They're down to 100. They are at 100. They are halfway. How are you going, Nick? How are you feeling?
With a little bit more patience, I'll be able to realise that that one is in the wrong spot and that one goes there.
Well, you know what, Nick, to be honest, you've done better than the Brawn tribe on one of the challenges because they didn't know how to spell survivor. It was rather embarrassing. They're at 143, Nick. You better pick it up, mate. $50 left, Nick. Move those fast fingers. I'm surprised they've actually learnt how to count in this game. There's actually no harassment from the Brawn tribe right now because they are all cooked. They've eaten so much in Jury Villa. They've put on all that weight they lost.
30.
Oh,
29,
30 to go.
36, 35, 34. Is there another piece? 3.
No, come on.
Yeah. 31. Yeah. 20.
Only 20 push-ups to go, Nick. Come on. What are you doing here, mate?
15, 14, 12,
10, 9, 8, 7. Oh, it's coming down to the wire. Has he done it? Has he done it? He's done it. Brain's taken out by 2 push-ups. Brain's taken out for the win again.
Well, this season has been unbelievable. It's given us all the thrills and the feels. But I want to know what your thoughts are of the season, Luke, and also the best play that you witnessed during it.
Look, I've loved the season. We've had a lot of twists and turns, and just to see Survivor being played in the Australian outback, we bring it home. You know, we get to really see the harsh conditions that these guys have actually all committed to play in. And I feel like it's one of the most grueling seasons to play in. It's just been one hell of a ride. And I feel like we've also ended up with some great finalists. That's the most that you can expect and hope from a season.
I think for me, it just shows how dirty you are when you go out bush. God, they were so dirty. Your best play, though, the best play.
Look, my best play, I've loved George all season. He's narrated the whole season. He has been a breath of fresh air, a very different character. And I think that just when he saved Cara, I think that move when all the votes went on Cara and his one vote saved her was something that I always wanted to do in one of my seasons. And to see it be played out in the situation where he repaid the thing that Cara did at the start. It was just a nice moment for me.
When you bring up Cara, I think my favourite thing of the season was when Cara accidentally sent home Big D. That was terrible. But anyway, that's not a best move. That was just the biggest misstep. Shannon, what's your thoughts on the season? Which, I mean, we're going to agree has been amazing. And also, what is your pick for the best play?
I mean, the season has been epic. It has been, for me, the season of extremes. I think people look back and see that it was never boring. It was always at its peak in any capacity. It was always making you feel something. And to that point, I don't know that I can just decide on one best play. I'm sorry to be a fence sitter, but I will refuse to split these finalists. Whether it was Haley's move against Shannon with the idol, I love that play so much, using that idol to maximum effect by threatening to use it on her or Baden with the rock, paper, scissors, or George's play, especially against Gerald with the plurality vote. It's just such high-key conceptual Survivor strategy that has to be executed so well, and it's so innovative. And even this week, I don't know that I could split how much I love George's final 5 move from Haley's final 4 convincing. So I can't split these two. And I think, Nathan, whatever you picked up on set to give us the award this week, whatever random piece of garbage, you should be splitting it and giving it to both of them.
Random piece of garbage?
It means a lot.
One of the most amazing things we've ever seen. And you're right. Okay, so we're going to split it. So, okay. What about the broken branch of brilliance, yes?
Split it up, yes.
Split it up.
Finalists, yes.
You're not going to be able to break it.
Okay, how about the branch
In theory.
the branch of brilliance, and they just hold either end? How about
Yeah.
that? All right.
Like a limbo stick.
One end to George and one end to Haley.
All right. And same thing, Shan?
Yeah, I mean, unless you can end up breaking it, but yeah, I think they can both hold it and just, we can applaud them and what an incredible season they and the cast delivered.
Nah, it's got metal in it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching Australian Survivor Talking Tribal with myself, Nathan Morris, and OG King of the Jungle. He's our king here on Talking Tribal, Luke Toki. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Nath. I've really enjoyed this season. It's been a pleasure to be a part of. All the contestants putting their bodies on the line. It's been great.
Awesome. Now, Shannon Gus, she's our queen here on Talking Tribal. She's been helping us dissect the series each and every week. Thanks so much, Shan.
The royal theme extends from the show to Talking Tribal, of course. No, but thank you so much for having me. I mean, I've loved analysing this season and just immersing myself in it too much. I need to now go get a life, but I've really enjoyed the last 2 months.
I don't have a life. Don't worry about it. It's not overrated. And then, of course, our roving reporter and court jester, he's going to hate me for that, Nick Iadanza, for bringing us the hot scoop from the Aussie Outback. Now, remember, you can watch Australian Survivor on 10play or check out the World of Survivor page on 10play for more series from around the globe. I know Shannon's all over those. Thanks again and see you next time.